Oh, you're welcome, man. We're happy to have you. We enjoy um, working with this community and trying to educate as many people as possible. It's always great to meet and interact with new people. So, can you hear me now, though? Right? Just want to get some feedback to make sure that my mic is working. Guys, just give me some feedback if you could hear this. Okay, great. All right, so yeah, night charting. Well, night charting is a thing for me right now because it is 11:39 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm based out of New York. So yeah, it is something that is popularized by traders who trade. Um, a lot of it's popular for individual traders to trade who trade equity markets to do their charting and do their homework on the weekends and on the nights preceding the market open in the morning. So I try not to be much of a night owl. Going into my mid 30s, it does have more of an effect on me to not get as much sleep as possible, or not as much sleep as possible. But I find that there's a sweet spot, and if I go beyond it, if I'm up all night working or staring at charts, data, doing back tests, and so forth, I find that it really just kind of destroys my next 2 days. So if I stay up past 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm kind of screwed because I wake up extremely early either way. I try to wake up. I try to wake up at 5. All right, sometimes that doesn't happen. I've been trying to integrate those really early gym sessions, just to kind of get the machine up and running early as possible. But yeah, so we're gonna go over some requests. If you guys have any charts that you want me to take a look at. So yesterday I tried to put up this entire video, and twice the live stream canceled, and then I figured, all right, the live stream's not working, so I will just make a pre-recorded video and I'll post that. So I made one pre-recorded video, and I went to go play it, and I noticed that all the sound was completely messed up. I couldn't load the second one, so I don't know what happened. I think I might have to um, get a new computer. So I have a few computers, but the one that I'm on right now is it's a big Mac setup. So I have a whole trading setup, an office setup with a Mac, and maybe it's just time to update this guy because it has a lot of stuff that is taking up space, I guess, or CPU usage. So yeah, so I want to go over some charts, but what I wanted to cover more yesterday was the update to this indicator that you see. So for anyone who's new, you can see that this indicator has the weekly. All right, so the weekly open, and then the monthly open, and that is useful because there is likely going to be resting orders left at those areas by larger traders that are trying to get filled over time. So traditionally, that's how it would be utilized. So these areas end up acting as some type of support if we're coming down from above, or resistance if we are trying to reclaim. And what you'll see from time to time is that when I share this chart, these might appear different. I get into these moods where I want to have something one way on my chart, and then the next week I'm showing it a different way. And sometimes I just get tired of the actual cluttered look of having indicators on the chart. So what I will do is from time to time, I'll kind of make these look transparent so that I could, so they're not kind of cluttering my vision. Or what I'll do is, and I had this previously set up this way, I'll just put them as dots. So what it will do is it will turn these weekly opens now into these dots right here, so that it's not all these lines on the chart. What happens though now using this ATR indicator, the ATR indicator is the high and the low is indicated by the dots, so it's easy to get these confused. So for the sake of being able to distinguish what's what, I'm going to keep these as the line. And I think it's a good idea for you guys to do that as well. If you're going to have all of these open at the same time, now you don't have to have all of these settings open. I have said before that you should get to playing around with this and experimenting with it. If you change the moving average length, you'll change the actual moving average that indicates whether we are above or below it by candle close colors, or rather candle colors in general. So if I change this to the 50 moving average, you'll see that it'll include more of these candles in the green, because the moving average the 50 moving average rather on the 4 hour includes more candles above it. Now other things as well, I will take off the volume lower than the VMA. I keep my two VMA lengths, all right, short and long, the same, just to get one indication as to whether we're above the 50 VMA or below it. And since I know that if we're not above it, we're below it, I only want to see the times that we're above it. So I'll just keep this one left on, so the volume greater than VMA. And then I'll either have the month open and the weekly open, okay, on, or the ATRs on. So I don't want to have too many things open at the same time, but I'm just going to leave this on. Or rather, I'll take this off now to show you the ATR. So the ATR is it's an average true range, and it's like a moving average where it'll have a period setting, okay, and it'll show you the average true range of price movement for that candle setting. So this is useful, okay. This is definitely useful. This is useful to identify when we break out of a range. So if we've been moving within a really tight range, this helps us identify maybe what is considered noise, meaning movement that still falls within the range, or what's worth paying attention to, meaning movement outside of the range. So typically when you're moving within a tight range, whatever direction you resolve in will be impulsive. So you can see down here, all right, the range of this channel, okay, indicated. I don't know, maybe if I should turn this up a little bit so you can see it better. Or right now I'll just put these on as lines. So you can see where we're really tight, okay, the high, the low, all right, the resistance basically, and the support calculated by the ATR. And when we break above this really tight zone, all right, this is a breakout, and this ends up traveling much further than what you would anticipate. But needless to say, these tight spots are areas where when price breaks either up or down, it tends to cover some distance and do it violently. So this is useful for identifying potential areas of breakouts, okay, for identifying potential areas that might act as support and resistance again. All right, so this helps you identify a confluence between maybe where you're marking your charts and the weekly open, the monthly open, and what this actual ATR is showing us. So all of this stuff is really just to give you a heads up. If you were just looking at this chart naked and you're plotting the support and resistances on it on your own, based on closes on the daily or the 4 hour, putting these on can help you identify where your areas are lining up with other areas that might be considerably strong, based on either being rejected off of moving up or rejecting in continuing down. Another thing the ATR is useful for is when we are using a volatility stop, all right, or when we are using a volatility breakout, and I mentioned that earlier, but I'll go into that separately in another video. I don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole with this indicator. So I will just turn this off right now. All right. All of these things, so like the weekly open, the monthly open, these are more useful on Bitcoin because it is an asset that trades more like a macro asset. It is the larger asset. It has the most liquidity, the most volume, the most people interested in it at the moment. You're not really going to find that something like the weekly open or the monthly open might be too important on really low sat altcoins. On some of them, it will be. You'll see that on a lot of these altcoins that have been selling off. I'm on my indexes chart. Let's go to Binance. If we just go through a bunch of these, let's go on the daily. A lot of these actually came up to their previous monthly open zone before ultimately rejecting. So I just want to find some examples of that. So I'll put the ATRs off. Actually, what the hell, we'll leave all these on. All right, put these back as the dots. And I'm not looking at the comments right now, but I'll look back in a sec once I'm done with this example. All right. So right now, the monthly, okay, is indicated by this red line. All right. Let me turn off this price action, or rather this color setting so we can see where we were rejected based on the actual candle close colors. So let's just go up the list right now. Let me see if I can find some good examples, all right, of coming back up to the monthly. So monthly open right here, coming back up to the monthly, being rejected. All right, this actually happened to reject pretty close to this ATR resistance. All right, let's come down some more. Okay, reject off this monthly up here, reject over here. All right, coming down the list. Okay, not really, kind of close, not worth paying attention to. Okay, monthly open over here, we're below it, it's serving as resistance. We come back up, we close above, barely, but you can see that these areas do act as strong resistances or precise resistances a few times in these altcoins. Now the trouble with that is it's hard to tell what is actually necessarily something that's acting as resistance or something that's just lining up with where it is on the chart. I would say that these are far more useful for trading Bitcoin than anything else. But let me look at your comments real quick. Let's see if we can go over some alt setups, get a general feel for where we are right now with the market. So, okay, can everyone hear me? That's me. All right. Nice Yeti, yeah. Okay, interested in Theta, ZIL 1 against BTC. Okay, ZIL at 70 sats, 1 at 84. Okay. Early gem for the win. Yeah, that's true. They are the best. All right, so I'm gonna let's go look at Theta real quick. Let's go on the Binance chart. Theta BTC, right? Okay, right now is a good time to chart things against BTC because we want to see if BTC pulls back. I'll take a look at seller 2, responder 0. We want to see how things respond when BTC pulls back and how they're actually doing against BTC in that case, rather. So we'll stick to charting with Bitcoin pairs, and we're looking at Theta right now. All right, let's just take a look at the higher time frame. Okay, let's look on the weekly first. Take this off. I sometimes will use a 2-day. All right. Especially with alts, when the trend changes, I want to put on something like the 2-day chart and see the confirmation on a 2-day chart. So it's not just one daily close above an area that I'm paying attention to. All right, so let's take a look at this real quick. So just chart some important areas. Lock this so these stay. Okay. All right, let's see what we got. So this was the underside resistance, okay? And we formed that by indicating where this major bottom was over here. All right, so we have a little bit of a V bottom over here, okay? Press upward. This was back in May. Close back below. This serves as resistance. All right, we ultimately break up and retest this structure. All right, how do we get that structure? Okay, this is the first area that price retraced back to. All right, after this breakup in May, and let's see what fib that's back at. Okay, that's at the basically the 5. All right, so halfway back before ultimately moving up and retesting the highs of this structure. All right, but looking at this now, okay, some might say that we are beginning to form some type of wedge. All right, and in this case, what I would ultimately want to see for any type of long, okay, is at least a recovery of this midline. Okay, so whether or not we're looking at this wedge forming or this triangle or whatever, what have you, okay, even though right now this is by measure of risk versus return, or by just being able to define a risk relative to this structure, this might be attractive to someone who is willing to put a really tight stop in long, all right, with anticipation of either actually retesting this high, okay, or retesting further up. I would not get that confident yet. I at least would need to see us reclaim the key areas within this structure. So if we're looking on a 4-hour chart right now, all right, and if we're going to say that, let me just pull, let's get the straight bar so I don't even have to do that. Okay. You know what, alts are a little bit loose. So since alts are not as liquid, I'm not going to be using a precise line because it's definitely not going to be nearly as important. Okay, that is clearly the highs. Okay, this is definitely the midpoint of the structure right over here. Let me close this a little bit. Okay, so rough because this is, it is an altcoin, so it's not nearly as liquid. The levels are not going to be nearly as precise. Okay, there's going to be, like I said, plenty of noise. So what we do have more confirmation, all right, than we might have been willing to look for previously, all right, when everyone was a bit more confident. So with this, I'd at least need to see us come up here, retest this structure, all right, at which point I would likely buy this retest. All right, similar to how we checked off of here previously, came back up, all right, came down here and tested this high. I would ultimately want to see that. So if we can mosey our way up here and in being rejected, press back through, all right, I would be looking for a retest of this structure right here if I'm going to assume any type of continuation. What it does kind of look like to me, though, it does look a little bit weak at this point. All right, so like alts across the board, go figure, a lot of these look weak. All right, so I am not too confident in this. Now, Theta, clearly did have some massive pumps, but more and more these are beginning to look like they are just losing their steam across the board to be able to continue this process. Like I said, though, I mean, you can, if you wanted, you could define your risk right here pretty easily. In that if you're looking to put something on, at least you could put it between here and these lows, all right? But I would expect at least for this to retest this center line, or to find some level of resistance off of it, in which case it's not the most attractive trade. So the thing about a lot of these bounces that we're seeing right now, okay, we're seeing these large bounces, but they're actually not on high volume. So the reason why they're not on high volume is because the reason why rather the bounces are pretty big but they're not on high volume is because the assets are really thinly traded right now, so it doesn't take much at all to move the price. And I mentioned this in the post last night. So it doesn't take much at all to move the price. Give me one sec, guys. I'll be right back with you. I completely forgot something. All right, guys, sorry about that. So what I was doing was I actually was going through my refrigerator earlier and realized that I took chicken out to defrost, and I actually didn't cook it. So I said, what the hell, tonight I'll throw it in the oven, I'll cook it for the week so I have some type of meal prep. And I completely just forgot it in the oven about 6 minutes past its cooking time. So needless to say, it's fine to eat, but it probably won't taste too good. So anyway, right now, this structure doesn't really have what looks like the type of volume to support any type of reversal pattern. Okay, so what you typically want to see is a high amount of volume. All right, instead of the volume kicking in, these structures are moving up on low volume because the assets are so thin, meaning the books are so thin that just a little bit of money pushes the price up a lot. So these are not exactly what you want to get stuck in. And if we look at Theta right now, let's see, just go on Binance, for example. I always want to pay attention to the daily volume too. All right, if you look at the daily volume of something, okay, so let's go to advanced, or rather I should just go to markets. So, all right, we'll just go to this. This is fun. So let's go to Theta. Okay, 30. Theta only has, on the USD pair, only has 37. No way. Am I reading this right? I haven't been on Binance in so long. Okay. Oh, look at that. Fantastic. Look how thin and ugly this asset is. Jesus, guys. Jesus. Excuse me. So, I would not look to enter into Theta, okay, right now at all. All right, without more volume coming in, this thing is dangerous. So look at this. The spread is 2.3% wide. All right, that means that once you put a position on, you are moving this guy up on your own. Okay. Not only that, so let's look at what this looks like on a 3-minute. I bet the chart is disgusting. Yes, look at this. Oh my God, that's terrible. So pretty much, if you put on just a fraction of money in this, you're going to move this chart a lot and you're going to be stuck in the position because no one else is trading this. So you need to pay attention to the volume. Right now, the daily volume is 18 Bitcoin. So there is only $180,000 being traded in this asset. 24 hours. That is horrible. Stay away from it. All right, so I'm glad you asked that question. I feel bad that I charted it at first and then gave you that answer. But that's the honest answer. So I'm not going to tell you anything else. When you see volume start coming in this, then I'd be willing to step in a trend change. And you know where that likely happens? Yeah, it means that you're not going to get filled at the lowest prices, but you know, it's better to miss the beginning of a move. All right, say just randomly, let's say that it comes up here. Okay, it is better to miss the beginning of the move, and you know, who knows what this is. Let's say this is, you know, we miss out on 25%. It sounds big, right? But if this thing is going to go up another, you know, 45%, to wait for this, all right, is the confirmation that you would need before more eyes would likely be on this chart and would likely bring some more volume to this thing and make it a little bit more liquid. So what else do we have? We have one at 8. We have ZIL. So ZIL is another one that is completely just kind of crap the bed, right? ZIL BTC. I remember I had a friend of mine, and all the way, let's see, yeah. So all the way back here, okay, back here, all right, I told him, okay, he was confident in getting in ZIL down here. But I said, listen, man, this guy was like, this guy lost $3 million, $3 million between a matter of 6 months the year before trading altcoins. And he was telling me all about ZIL. The guy was married to ZIL. And he was confident in getting over here just because it looked like this was a V bottom and that this would be the retest. And it ultimately did. It did end up coming up to here, right? It came all the way up here. I told him just wait until we actually get a break above this structure and retest it, which we did get. So got it over here. All right. He was extremely pissed that he did not get in at the exact bottom. And I told him, listen, man, it's okay. It's going to come all the way back down. And, you know, the entire time that it was moving up, he was not willing to get in the position because he was kind of punishing himself that he didn't get in down here. I said, listen, man, it's going to come all the way back down. And sure enough, it did come all the way back down and then some. So right now, I'm sure he's pretty happy. So ZIL was one of those things, right, where it seems like it had promising fundamentals, but none of these matter right now. With fundamentals, none of them matter right now. Okay, no one is in this asset class for fundamentals yet. Okay, so what do we have with ZIL right now? Okay, we have another one of these cases where ZIL is probably on tremendously low volume. All right, I'm just gonna look at the volume on this one before we even get into it. Okay, 80 Bitcoins. So that's pretty horrible as well. All right, that is definitely horrible. Let's look at the USDT chart because then we'll have a more clear. When you look at a USDT chart, it's easier for you to convert, you know, how much you're going to move the price. All right, so right now, okay, if we wanted to put $5,000 on ZIL, let's just say arbitrary number $5,000, okay, you'd buy up this entire book. So you'd buy the price from 0.00708 all the way up to 0.00729. So this is also a large spread. It's half of a percentage on here, and on the actual Bitcoin chart, it is, okay, the spread is 1.5%. That is horrible. So 1.5% spread, that's absolutely terrible, okay? And that is terrible because when assets are not heavily traded, all right, when you're trying to get filled in something and you're not going to try to execute at market, you try to put an order on the book. So you execute a limit order, you put in a limit order down here, all right, you get put down here, okay? Now you're not prioritized because your order didn't come in right away. There's definitely a line ahead of you, and this is how, so there's a certain way that the order book is prioritized, okay? First come, first serve, obviously. And when the asset's not moving, period, it's unlikely the price is going to come down and take your order. So what traders do is instead they buy market. So they execute a market order, it guarantees they're in the price, and they buy right from here. So they get filled, okay, depending on how large their order, okay, relative to what is in the offer next to the current price. So you can see right now, you know, there's a total of 1 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoin, 3, 4, 5, 6, say 6, whatever. If you wanted to buy 6 Bitcoin or $60,000 worth of ZIL right now, you would move this thing up. This is a formula you could figure out. So this 71 sats right now. To buy it up to 72, that would cost 1 Bitcoin. To buy it up to 73, cost 2 Bitcoin. If you're trying to put a large position on this, you're going to move the price. So what happens when these assets are not heavily traded? All right, traders get in at market, they chase momentum, and then they end up creating the momentum because they push the price up. Except, since no one else is trading the asset and there's no real major influx, this whole area doesn't fill up again. Okay, so when I say this whole area, I mean demand doesn't stack up behind the gap that's created. So what happens? We have one of the cases where I think Fuel, yesterday, I think it was Fuel. Let me just go to Fuel. Was it Fuel? Was it Fuel? I think Fuel went up 200%, right? Bang. Yes, it was Fuel. Memory is serving me well today. It must be my fish oil, my MCT oil. So Fuel, look at this. It went up 215%. That's amazing. I think 217, who cares? Close enough. All right, except when it went up, okay, there's a ton of market buying. So this is how pump and dumps occur. Some small group of people buy at market. They push the price just up enough to make everyone else think it's a new trend beginning or something occurring or a pump or what so have you, anything. And then they chase the price up. The people that created it get out up here, all right? And then since no new demand came up to stack up behind it, this whole gap is filled, meaning price just comes back down to the nearest area where the natural demand is. So looking at ZIL again, nothing stands out to me immediately. So the thing about these alts right now is it'll stand out to you immediately. So one thing that stands out to me is that the 2-hour chart looks like a 1 sat crap coin on a 1-minute chart. So this is horrible right here. This type of price action, this type of liquidity. All right, look at all these candles right here. You want to avoid anything that looks like this, okay? Unless you're putting $50 on this thing, there's no way that you're going to be able to put any real money on this without moving the price yourself. And that means when you buy, price corrects and you lose money immediately. Okay, so for ZIL, again, look what we have with ZIL. All right, this is actually, since it is not liquid, this is very loose. So the structure really is sort of a V bottom, okay? Bouncing here, come down, back up. All right, this is what the structure should look like in a clean manner, meaning that these are basically the lows, okay? This is the lows over here. All right, we're basically retesting what was, this is such an ugly chart that it's hard to tell, and even on a 12-hour. All right, this retested this zone over here and looks like it is being rejected because no one else is stepping in. With these alts, what you need to see is, and I've said how swing failure patterns used to work in the past, all right, but they are not as promising now. So you have a swing, it looks like it's about to be a swing failure pattern, and these would be a breakout up here where you would sell up here. But instead, these are all just failing prematurely. So we fail, we come back above here, break above here, split second break. All right, someone probably got their shorts filled up here. All right, only for us to come all the way back down. This does not look attractive. All of these are pretty ugly. So what you need to see with these is a major reclaim of some type of support. So if this is the 50 right here of this structure and this is the high area, okay, you at least need to see with these, all right, some type of support and resistance reclaim. All right, whether it's the first one or the last one, doesn't matter. Okay, a trend change is going to be way more clear than just this burst of noise. So again, not something that is attractive. What else do we have? One. Yes, I wouldn't step into none of these right now either. I wouldn't step into one. So let's see. One against BTC. One might be a little bit better because one is a newer coin, and I think that a lot of these things just become a popularity contest with what is new, right? Okay, let's see. Oh, it's telling me my bitrate is a little low. I hope everyone can still hear me. Okay, one. Oh, this is ugly. Yeah. The only thing I could say with one, all right, and this is pretty ugly, is that, and the trade already took place, one breaking down, so testing these lows again, okay, it looks like it's already failing right here, all right, failing to reclaim this area, so again, this is just a pretty diabolically ugly chart. So let's see if we can find something good. ZIL, no, bad. Yeah, Chainlink. So let's see. I'm gonna read all these thoughts on BAT. Okay, BAT. Let's talk about BAT. BAT was one of the best looking charts for a long time. BAT and XLM. Does everyone remember XLM? How great that chart looked? It held up the entire bear market. Okay, it didn't make new lows. It just made this large. Let's just look at it. Let's look at this sadness that was Stellar. Okay. Let's see. Okay, look at this chart. Remember this chart? This was a great chart. Okay, as Bitcoin, this was showing strength in the face of Bitcoin's downward move, right? So this entire time, okay, leading up to and before Bitcoin broke down, this chart was maintaining sort of a bullish argument, right? So it was making higher lows, okay, on the longer time frame. It was more or less forming this tightening pattern, right? And then we ultimately broke out above it, and it looked like this thing was just going to screech off. Okay, there was, supposedly XLM had these great fundamentals and it was going to be adopted, right? And then ultimately what would happen? Major breakdown, major failure retest, okay, and just broke down continuously from there. So BAT was the same sort of chart, right? BAT was another chart that looked pretty identical to this. So BAT was one of these patterns as well, where even though Bitcoin was pretty much doing the ugly thing, BAT for this entire period, okay, it was making actually a higher low when Bitcoin was, doing the whole this pattern, okay, in 2018. So BAT right now, this ultimately, what I would say is, if I was looking at anything right now, I would look at this zone for a retest, okay, and see if we can make a move up to here from the highs, or rather up again at the highs. But some of these, so what I'm noticing is these patterns are having less and less of a lifespan. So whereas with each preceding pump that has occurred when they've gone through a major phase, we've gotten one less piece of the continuation cycle, rather one less piece of the leg. So normally, I would say that, hey, this breaks down from here, retest this structure right here as support, and then we'll at least get this. Whereas maybe right now with the limited amount of trading, with the not limited amount of trading, but limited amount of interest, maybe what we're just going to get is a bunch of breakouts of structure, right, that ultimately end up failing. But right now, this is actually one of the more attractive looking setups that you guys have named. And why do I say that? Well, because what we have here is we ultimately have this swing failure pattern, okay? We broke up above this, all right, and it looks like we could potentially be testing. Let me put the lines on because I shouldn't be drawing these ugly lines when I have this one. So what do we have? The lows. Okay. Should put a box here actually. Okay, so these lows for this structure over here. Okay, let's catch it to this wick over here. So you could see that this was essentially a swing failure pattern. All right. We came, I have to get better at using these drawing tools. Okay, swing low, high, fail to break lower. Okay, break out above this structural area. All right. And now it looks like we're not only, if you think of it, we're not only reclaiming this structural area, we're reclaiming this structural area. So this is actually one of the more attractive looking charts right now, if it wasn't for the fact that this 4-hour candle is really ugly. So what you would rather see, obviously, is less selling pressure. And after the retest of this high, even though it could have just been the strength of that rejection, all right, that is a pretty ugly candle. But it makes sense, right? Because no one is really getting in these for, everyone knows what they're getting into right now. So you have to think about the actual psychology of the participants. So everyone is kind of trying to get out as fast as possible, not get stuck in an alt. And that means get out if you can get to the next target. So if you are lucky enough to capture a move and get to the next structural target, there's going to be a lot of traders that are looking to exit with you. So that leaves a crowded exit, right? So it is like a bunch of people trying to exit a very small doorway. So you get one of these explosive moves to the downside. But right now it looks like we're actually coming off of this area in what I would say is decent price action. Although what I would ultimately, this would have looked better if it weren't for this next 90-minute candle that's forming. If it was just this pin right here to this structure and we actually made some type of level candle right here or slightly higher up, I would say this looks better than it does right now. But this is the best looking one, in my opinion, out of all the ones I just did at least. And if we look at the volume, hopefully this one has a decent amount of volume. Okay, nope, not the best volume. The spread is okay, 1/3% basically. It's pretty bad still. So yeah, that's a decent looking setup. I can hear you fine. Cool. Would you say that BTC pumped today to 10,280 where shorts filling and then PA went right back down to let's look at Bitcoin actually, because that's the best one, right? Let's look at Bitcoin. Okay, I'm going to go on to the Coinbase chart, because while I do go time to time to BitMEX's chart because it is where the most trading volume takes place, there are times when high leverage candles get liquidated or high leverage positions get liquidated, and they give you these large candles that are not going to be found on other charts and therefore might not be necessary to pay attention to because they're not rejections, they're just actual liquidations. What I see right here though, okay, I set up that short yesterday and hopefully everyone caught the update. I don't know if when you do an update on the, I don't know if when I have to figure that out actually. I probably should just put up another post now that I think of that. I put up a short yesterday in which I said, I gave the reason why, okay, the failed retest, and I think that was right around, I'm trying to think where that was around. Maybe it was a 4-hour chart. Where were we? Might have been right here, or was it right here? Either way, when I saw that price was actually coming back up, I said we should move our stop, and we actually moved it up $15, and which is good because we would have been stopped out at 10,385. All right, actually, I think the wick went up to 10,387, but nevertheless, all right, what we do have is price breaking down. Okay, so this level up here. All right, we were rejected from over here, and you could say that this is probably going to be the 50 of this structure, I would assume. All right, more or less, right? So the 50 zone of this structure, ultimately before rejecting further down. Okay, whether or not these wicks are shorts getting filled, okay, it sort of looks like that, right? Except we are not actually taking out of any of these highs, okay? It doesn't look like we're taking out any new highs. So normally you would want to see for a stop hunt, something like a wick coming above a previous wick. So if we had a wick that came from this candle slightly above this one before there was a reversal in price, all right, what this looks like is this looks like there are largely, or there's probably a lot of dormant orders left on the book. Okay, so orders that were left down here to buy when price came back down after making this move up. So there's probably a lot of dormant orders, but there's probably a lot more selling pressure than there are orders. So as price comes down and tests the depth of this book, meaning the actual order book, you're going to get these little hops. And I call these like the little landmines they hit along the way, right? Or little speed bumps. But the major energy is in the way of, is in the southern direction rather than the northern direction. So what this looks like to me is this looks like a very clear retest of this, what was this support over here, right? So this was the first bounce over here. Okay, this looks like we're basically pretty much lining up with the bottom of this wick, all right, and this structure over here. Now, the candle that's forming right now on the 2-hour, all right, gives more argument to us potentially just breaking lower, right? If there are longs that were taken out right here, okay, this is definitely not a place that, not a candle that you're going to want to see, or price action unfolding that you're going to want to see if you entered in at this point. If you had a dormant order on the book and you entered in at this point, all right, your stop is probably going to be right below this. So what happens is these orders are triggered, okay, stops are placed on the book, all right, and then you just have this cascade effect where price is hit, okay, bounces up slightly, it ends up not having any demand behind it, trickles down, triggers the next stop order, flushes, and repeats this pattern until ultimately one side really gives in. So that's what my opinion is, right? I think that this is showing weakness, but there's so many times when we've looked at Bitcoin and it's shown weakness, and that is exactly when it's shown its strength, like right when you think it's going to fail. So I don't marry into anything. I think, to me, my brain says this looks weak. This looked weak over here. This looked weak over here. These all looked like they were just ready to kind of crap the bed. And the same way this works, right? How many of these times are we going to have where price looks like it's just going to roll over, right? Ultimately, this support has not failed yet. So that is the underlying theme, right? Or the underlying main argument that support hasn't failed. So until it does fail, every short that is taken does have a target that is going to be closer than that, right? So I would not just blind short this thinking we're going to hit 8,000. There's always a target in between. So with these targets right now, I said that it would be the weekly and the monthly. Okay, the open, all right, so the weekly open back here, all right, and then the monthly open back here. So ultimately, I would expect price to bounce over here to some degree, right? Now, the ultimate short, all right, so where you go short is where you see, okay, let me take this off again, where we see price break below here, okay, on the daily, so below, move up, and then heavy rejection right here. Heavy rejection right here, okay, at that point, you place your stop right above here, and you short this thing, okay? That is my opinion. And, some people might say, well, why would you short it right there? Ultimately, this is a bull market. Our next area of interest is going to be right here. So, that is it. The setup is decent, right? So the expectancy of that trade is there. But I think that after you spend this amount of time moving sideways and you find the resolve to one direction, and it is shown that buyers were not stepping in at all up here, really moving this thing higher, I think that this thing exceeds expectations to the downside in the way that they did to the upside. So that's my opinion. You heard it here. Any other questions? I'm going to go right now. Damn, Bangafran, you left. All right. So general market cap liquidity on BTC. Bitcoin's the most liquid one, right? There's no arguing that. In terms of general market cap, looking at the market cap chart, let's go to BitMEX. I think I have all these over here. Total market cap. Yeah, so, this doesn't look too bad, right? This doesn't look too bad. If you want to draw some meme triangles. Okay, there's one right there. You could continue to draw these, though, as price unfolds. That's the problem with triangles. Right, we could draw one from here, okay, that more or less connects the top of that and the structure there. It doesn't look all that bad to me. Like I said, this area is still maintained. It just happens to be that there is a potential that this was the best short entry up here, right? So a retest, okay, or rather retest and then failure right from this zone, okay. That potentially could be the ultimate short entry, or could have been the ultimate short entry for someone. We're talking about on the Bitcoin chart, which is going to look very similar to the market cap chart because it represents 71% of the market cap. So yeah, we'll see. Right now, like I always say, and too many people are so hype driven. Nothing changes until something changes. We've been moving within this. Let's look at the indicator right now on the higher time frame on the weekly. Okay. Let's go down to 2 days. That's too much. So pretty much the range of this movement that we've been within for the last, 10 days, 13% range. Okay. $1,200 window. All right. For this whole structure. Okay. pretty big range there when you look at it. 46%, $4,000. All right. But over here, nothing really changes until something major changes. And when it does, it's going to continue on for quite some time, likely. Now, the alternative that would surprise everyone is just sideways price movement, right? So just continuous sideways price movement like gold did for 2 years. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think that I talked about, so one of the things I mentioned was people getting bored of trading Bitcoin and exiting their positions because of that. So you have to keep in mind, when I'm talking about trading, I'm not talking about my long-term holding. I'm not talking about my spot holdings, okay? I have my spot holdings. I bought Bitcoin on December 23rd, I think. So December 23rd, I filled my bags. So December 23rd, that was... Okay, I think I got in anywhere from 37 to, I started scaling in at December 23rd. So I got in starting getting around 939, okay, and I was buying all the way down to 34. I got a little busy, so I did not continue to buy. I did not buy the absolute bottom, but I got in right around here. So I am really happy with my holdings, okay? I do not mess with those, all right? If something major changes, I would consider changing some of my position, but for the most part, I have a pool of capital that is dedicated to just longing the future for Bitcoin. All right, and I figure, what the hell? I don't have anything. I do have something to lose, obviously, if it goes to zero, but I don't think that that's happening. I think that I end up making money in the long run with this spot holding. What I trade is just derivatives. So I trade the actual derivative of Bitcoin. When I'm taking positions to accumulate more Bitcoin, that is when I'm trading derivatives. So, let's see. Seller news. Don't pay attention to any news. Sell the news. All right, what else do we have? And then we're going to wrap this up. Thoughts? The only news you pay attention to in trading is Fed news. So, rate cuts, rate increases, major stories. So, something like natural disasters, major changes, okay? Otherwise, it's noise. Thoughts to heavy bag holders, alts. So, it's kind of like a home run, right? Swing for the fences with some of those where you have them. You have them still, and you're gonna kick yourself the moment you sell. I'll tell you what happens. You're gonna kick yourself the moment you sell because its price is gonna go up a little bit, and you're gonna say, I could have got out at a higher price. You could potentially kick yourself when it goes up a lot. You could marry it down for another 30% and figure, hey, it's a loss. So I don't. I tried to be really vocal about. I tried to be really vocal about my thoughts on alts a long time ago, and hoping that I wouldn't give people actual advice, but they would actually try to take what I was saying and apply it themselves. I think basic attention token. I think that might have some type of future. I don't know enough about Dent or ENJ to really say anything. But a lot of things can change within a year, right? So a lot of things can change within 6 months. So why do I trade derivatives versus BTC? What I meant was I don't trade my spot holdings. So I don't go into my Coinbase and take my Bitcoin and trade it. If I'm trading, I take spot Bitcoin, send it to a derivatives exchange, and I trade it on that. So let me tell you how I structure myself. I have a risk on pool and a risk off pool. So I take a certain amount of trading capital and I dedicate that just to trading. And then I have a pool of money that I do not touch at all, and that is my long-term investment. All right. And what I don't do is I don't get into trades and then turn them into investments. So I primarily trade Bitcoin. So a lot of people with alts, they get into them trading and then they get stuck in a crappy position and they're like, I'm just going to keep this as an investment. So I trade, I don't trade my spot holdings. I take some of my spot, obviously, or it ends up becoming that I put money into crypto. I transfer it from, cash to Bitcoin and then move it to an exchange. But I have a dedicated amount of capital that I keep locked up. I have a dedicated amount of Bitcoin that I do not touch. And I kind of leave it at that. Hey, if that, like I said, kind of shits the bed, that's fine. And then I have my trading pool that I use to build more capital. So I want to grow USD. I want to grow Bitcoin. Ultimately, I want my whole USD value to grow. So That's that. All right. If anyone has any other questions, exchange you're using for leverage now? I'm based out of the United States, so put it that way. I I can tell you that there's some great exchanges that you can use. I could also tell you that everyone should have a VPN. So put it that way. Um, you know what I like about Bybit, for anyone who wants to use Bybit, is that Ben, the CEO, pretty much gives people everything that they're looking for. So if Bybit was missing something, someone said, "Hey, why can't we trade long and short at the same time? Hey, why can't I drag orders? Hey, why can't we have cross margin?" Immediately they implemented them. So what that says to me is that that's a good business person. That is a good CEO. They are making sure that they're fulfilling a demand, and that's that. So all right, guys, I have to head out now. Have a fantastic night. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me.